Hi everyone, I'm so excited to show you how I paint eyes following the Selective Start method. You're going to need some paint brushes. I like these guys. I use a number 2 round. I have one for my lighter color paints, one for my darker color paints, so 2 of these. And I have a 1/4 inch comber brush. Comber brushes have these little edges that are like little combs. I'll show you some pictures of that in the videos, but 2 of those would be great to have. Let's get started painting some eyes in the Selective Start method. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the eyes as if they are little mosaic tiles of different color. So I'm going to start to circle some of these so you can see these little shapes. I always like to analyze my reference material before painting it. And there you have the outline shapes of the eye. And what color is the white of our eye? Compared to the skin tone, it's a lighter blue. You can see that in the inside of the gray circle there as compared to the skin tone. These colors on the light side, how saturated are they? And when you start moving into the shadows, okay, so you see you start here in the light, and it's a little less saturated, a little more gray in the mid-value, mid-tone. It's getting a little bit darker, but it's still pretty neutral. And as we move more into the shadow, it's warming up and it's becoming a little more reddish brown. And then in that crease there, a little more reddish brown. And then there's a nice peachy color in the inside of the eye socket. And that's pretty much the colors of our eyes. These are the colors that we just found. I've placed them next to my eye, and we're going to use this guide to mix the colors for our paint palette. Here's a list of the initial oil paint colors that you will need to create your palette. Notice that I've placed my light values, my mid values, and my dark values on my actual paint palette exactly the same way as we did the color analysis. I'm going to be starting my painting today following the Selective Start method. So I'm using a number 2 round paintbrush. Basically I'll be painting most of the eye with this size paintbrush, and then I'll be using a 1/4 inch comber when we get into the lashes. I'm going to be giving you several tips along the way on painting eyes. And the first tip is all edges in eyes are painted softly. No hard edges. And let your brush strokes be a little bit messy. It's okay. And keep the brush stroke to the length, or just maybe slightly past the length of however long the hairs on your brush are. Another reason I like to start with the pupil and the iris is once you have that round shape done, you can use that as a unit of measure to make sure the proportions of your eye are correct. This is known as comparative measuring. So here's another tip for you when painting eyes. So you see on our eye reference image where the highlight is there on the left. Well, if you draw a line diagonally down in the same direction as the light's traveling, the tip is the part of the iris opposite the highlight will be lighter in color, possibly more saturated. Now, a huge beginner mistake when painting eyes is that beginners often try to paint the eye, the white of the eye, with pure white. I promise you, it's never pure white. So you probably noticed there's no black on my paint list or on my palette. So what we're doing to get that dark pupil and lash color is we're taking our Van Dyke brown and we're just mixing in a tiny bit of the ultramarine blue. And see how the whites of the eye are laying next to the iris, and we're not having a hard black outline around the iris, and we're letting the brush strokes when we're laying down the white of the eye just kind of flick into that iris edge. Another cool thing with the Selective Start method is If you're painting slow enough, you can dip your paintbrush into the paint that you think you're going to lay down for that little spot of color, and you can hold the brush over that area and look at it and see if it's the right color, right value, even before you lay it down. So if you're going slow enough, then you can take the time to see that. Welcome to my channel, Shelly J. Cox. Come along with me on my art journey. So the areas that are moving along the same plane as the direction of the light are going to be in your mid-value ranges. While the planes of your subject they're facing away from the light source, they're going to be in the shadow area. Notice how all my edges are staying soft. I love when I get to flick the end portion of the brush stroke. I just think that looks really cool. It makes a nice mark. Not all brush strokes need to be big and bold, and when you're working on such a small area as an eye, a lot of times a small tickle of a brush stroke is all you need to make all the difference. If you're getting some value out of the video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. And be sure to subscribe if you want to come along with me on my art journey. Ring the bell and I'll notify you of when I upload a new video, which is every Saturday morning. So the inside area of the eye, where the tear duct is, it recedes inward a little bit away from the viewer. So it's definitely going to be in shadow, and you want to paint it darker so that it helps give the illusion of the roundness of the eye in the eye socket. And don't be afraid to paint this area dark. You want some nice contrast in your eye, and it really helps bring home that illusion of the 3D roundness. And I know this tutorial is for how to paint eyes, but the eyebrows are a huge part of painting eyes. Would you like to see this eye tutorial in real time, full length, with all the tips and tricks along the way? Then all you have to do is go to the link in the description and put in your email, first name, click the button, and the full length free How to Paint Eyes tutorial will be on its way to you. Here's a look at the finished first eye, and now we're going to paint a second eye. Okay, we're going to look for the shapes of the eye, and I'm going to outline each individual shape in green. So let's start with an easy shape, like this part of the eye. So that could be a beginning shape. So here we see another shape. Inside that is this highlight shape, and you have this teeny tiny highlight down here. So remember, as we're putting down brush strokes, we're going to put them down in these colors and shapes. So we've got this shape. It's a little bit lighter with that highlight here on the bottom. And then we have another shape here. And there's a sliver of a shape there, and there, and then again here. We've got the tear duct shapes, this tiny little highlight in there. So the areas around the eyelashes can be a little tricky, but I like to squint at it and just kind of group it together as one shape. So when I squint at this, what I see is a shape here, here, and here, and here. And then again, through here, I see another shape little highlights flicked in the middle of it. And another one here. So when we're painting that, I like to use the comber brush and just kind of let the brush hairs make the little eyelashes. When painting eyes, you don't want to paint every single individual lash. It just doesn't give a nice result. I've got this shape here. I'm not even going to outline these little, well, this one's pretty clumped. So you want to clump them together, like groups of 3 at the less, groups of 3 at the least amount. I don't even, some you'll eliminate, like these little hairs right here, I'm not even going to paint those. I'm going to put 1 or 2 in here. And then another little group here. And possibly a group there. So if I put that in and I don't like it, then I can take it out. I'm not even going to put these little eyelashes in. So here's another little shape. We've got a bit of a highlight here. The under the eye. There's a highlight here. The skin under the eye is a little bit lighter there, and then it changes colors here and here. It's a little bit different there. There's that shape. Okay, do you see this little triangle of light here? So this area is a bit lighter. So the eyelids rounded out here a little bit, creating a tiny bit of a shadow there. And here I see a neutral gray color. And here's a little bit warmer pink color, just kind of the same there. A little warmer there. Lighter neutral color there. Bit of a highlight here. I'm just going to leave that open since we're not going to be really connecting it. So a little bit of a shade color here. I see a highlight there. It's a dark highlight, but it's highlight. And there. It's a little bit of a warm shadow. Plane change. And again there. Got some neutral colors here. Look at this grayish green color. It's just underneath the eyebrow. And then I see a color here, and just a slight change of a color in that area. A little gray here, a little darker gray here. And so this edge, the farthest end of the eyebrow, is a warm reddish dark color. You see a little bit of that here. And then it changes to a greenish gray. So you see a bit of a highlight on the lashes, or the eyebrow rather, there. Dark here. And then a little lighter there. Now these shapes are getting small. And then this is kind of a green gray here. And then we have really dark shape here and here. A little warmer one there. And there's a highlight here and here. And if you squint at this, it's just like a, well, there's a bit of a highlight. This is a grayish green. That's a little darker grayish green. And this highlight there, and then a little gray green.
So let's analyze the colors of our reference photo. I'll show you how I do this with Photoshop. I start by putting all of the paints that I have on my palette to the right side of my reference image. Using the color picker, I hover over areas in the face. I usually start with the lighter areas, and I place those colors at the bottom of the white palette, and then the mid-value colors I'll find next, and then I place those in the middle, and then we'll look for the shadow and darkest colors and we'll place those at the top. Once I have the colors on the palette, I like to change it to a black and white view so I can see if I've grouped the values correctly. Here's a look at how I have everything set up, and now we're ready to paint. Okay, we'll be starting with the pupil. My brush is a number 2 synthetic round. It's a soft-haired brush. I prefer to use like a synthetic sable, softer haired brushes, but if you want to use a stiffer haired brush, that's fine. It's just really a personal preference. I chose to start with the pupil and the iris because once we have that painted in, we can use the width of the pupil and iris to measure the width of our eye. The area where you see the white of the eye moving across into the tear duct is equal to 2 pupil and iris widths. I'm not going to have a hard line where the iris meets the white of the eye. I want those 2 areas to just kind of melt together. And here's a beginner mistake to avoid when painting the whites of the eyes. The whites of the eyes are never, ever white. Don't paint them with pure white paint. They're usually similar to the surrounding skin tones, but a touch cooler. So don't worry if the eye looks messy at this point. It should. You're doing it correctly. As we keep going, the eye is going to become more realistic looking, but we're never going to have that hyper realistic where we've just replicated a photograph. That's not what we're doing here. We are going to end up with a real looking eye, but it's going to be more painterly and expressive. I just love the look of our eye. Even at this point, I feel like I can see some emotion. It's pretty expressive even now. Feel free to experiment with the saturation level of the skin tones. What you don't want to stray from too far are the values. As long as the color is in the correct value, your eye's going to look realistic and correct. And the skin tone colors, you can have fun with that and experiment and just figure out what looks good to you as far as color. And remember what we said with eye number 1, you want your brush strokes to just be laid down and left alone. Don't blend them together. The philosophy with Selective Start is that you want to finish an area completely before moving away from it into a new area. So ideally, if I'm painting a portrait and I start with an eye, I'm going to finish it pretty much completely and then start moving either across the nose into the other eye. Sometimes I move up into the forehead, sometimes I move down towards the cheek. I guess it's just a feeling or the mood I'm in. I have no scientific reason for it. It's just how I feel and where I end up. Here's another beginner mistake for you to be aware of. When you're painting the highlight in 2 eyes, the eye that's closest to the viewer will have a dominant highlight over the eye that's further away. So you just want to paint that maybe a little bit bigger, a little bit brighter, but definitely give it more presence over the other eye that's slightly further away from the viewer. So I'm looking over every area of the eye, just kind of finishing it up, looking for any areas that I can improve, or if I need to change anything. I'm looking at the shapes of things, the values, and just making those final adjustments. And here we have the finished eye. Hey, stay tuned for an important announcement.
Don't forget to click on the link in the description below to grab your free full-length eye tutorial video. If you liked painting in this style, I've got to let you know I have an amazing digital course coming out mid-January of 2021. It's going to teach you how to paint the entire portrait in the same style following the Selective Start method. If you'd enjoyed this eye tutorial, then you want to keep an eye out, no pun intended, for my digital course. You guys, it's been fun, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.